As we learned in class, building a management tool requires three basic phases. The first phase is analysis, the second phase is the design phase, and the third phase is going through implementation. So we've learned a lot about Excel and some technical details about functions up until this point in our other modules. Now we want to take the learning that we've had both from class and from our Excel tutorials to build a management system tool. And in order to do that, we want to walk through each one of the phases. So in this phase, in this particular module, we're going to be talking about analysis. In the analysis phase, we want to be able to understand what the tool is intended to do, performance criteria, and who is the decision maker. So if we go back to our management system model that we've been studying in various activities in class, we've learned that we want to be able to understand who manages the system, and we are going to actually build the tool that is going to be used to actually manage the particular system for the decisions that are going to be made by the manager. The question in this particular case is what is being managed, who manages, and how are we taking the underlying data and turning it into information. For this example, we are going to be creating a tool for personal finance management. So this would be for a new graduate coming out of college that is looking at getting job offers and trying to figure out which particular job and location is best for them. We want to be able to put some particular tool set around the decision making on not only which job is selected, but also what expenses they have, how much of a car can they afford per month, what should be their amount of either mortgage or rent per month, based on some guidelines and criteria. So what we're going to do is if we go through this model and we start to answer some of these questions in the analysis phase, we can ask the question, who is the manager? In this case, a brand new graduate from college, and in particular you as the individual coming out of college to be able to manage your finances. The domain that we're looking at is personal finance and expense planning. And the tool that we're going to be using is an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to put some logic and we're going to build some features onto this spreadsheet tool, but essentially we are going to be using Excel as our basic tool. And then for the performance criteria, we're going to be looking at having a balanced budget. We're going to be having a savings goal that's going to be a performance criteria, and we're going to be aligning to some best practices in personal finance for some of our particular calculations. So when we go through the design phase, we want to be able to know what we're actually going to have as our inputs. So in analysis, we want to be able to answer these particular questions so we can create a conceptual framework. So for the inputs, we're going to have your gross income, overall expenses, tax percentages for the state that you live in, as well as federal taxes, what percentage you're contributing to your 401k. We're going to basically have some constants, which will be taxes. We know what those should be set to as a default, but we'll allow modification by the user. All of the variables that we have will be editable by the user, and we'll put some simple percentage calculations throughout the tool set. We are also going to put some constraints in here. We're going to set 25% gross income to housing as our threshold. Our total debt, which would be mortgage payment, car payment, student loan payments, we do not want to exceed 36% of our gross income for total debt payments per month. We'll shoot for 8% on our 401k as our default, but we'll allow modification for that. And then we'll shoot for a 10% savings threshold as our last performance criteria. So in the analysis phase, we are going through that management system model. We're answering the questions of who manages, what is going to be used to manage, what are the inputs, what's the underlying data, and what are our performance criteria. We're going to take all of this information that we're setting up here, some basic ideas and fundamentals. And as we move into the design phase, the first section of the design phase, we're going to create a skeleton or a conceptual layout, which can be done on a pen and paper or paint or any other kind of tool before we actually go into the hardcore development in Excel to build all of these features. But just as we discussed in class, as we build a management tool, we're going through these distinct phases. The first one, analysis, we're getting a layout of understanding who the manager is, who the decision maker is, what the domain is, and what we're going to be using to manage. So that ends this module. The next module, we're going to go into the design phase, where we're going to create the conceptual framework, and then the third module, we'll begin to create the actual tool in Excel.